And welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Tuesday, April 17th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. And today we're going to go to an interview with State Senator Kathleen Vinehout, whose district includes the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin. And we ask her, what are some of the reasons why a Native person would even want to vote? And we discuss with her some of the reasoning she thinks that the current governor, Governor Scott Walker, and his budget funding and defunding decisions have been devastating to the Native community. Kathleen Vinehout, thank you for joining with us on the Native News Update today. Tell us where you are and what the campaign trail looks like a little bit to give our watchers out there an idea of how things are going.
Well, for the moment, I'm sitting in my headquarters in Madison, but I sit for the moment traveling all over the state. I just got back to Columbia County, and before that I was in Green Bay and then up in Eau Claire, and very soon I'll be up in Rhinelander and up at Lac du Flambeau, sort of at the end of this week. We'll be making another trip up north.
Quite a whirlwind tour of the entire state that you have to complete in almost 30 days from the beginning of the recall signatures certification until now. What are you seeing out there?
There is a renaissance of democracy. People are involved like I have never seen before. They're paying attention. They want to look at the candidates. They want to look them in the eye. They want to get answers to their questions. We've had candidate forums. I bet I've had 20, Paul, candidates all over the state, and we've got a number of them left, and we're probably going to do about 4 televised debates, as well as a lot of the local TV stations are covering these candidate forums. It's been very exciting. I think it's an election like we've never seen before. I like to imagine that it hasn't been quite like this in Wisconsin for 100 years.
I think you might be right. I don't know if it's ever been quite like this.
Yes.
I'm a Native American person hiding out north of Highway 29, unless I'm in Oneida, down by Green Bay, then I'm just south with Highway 29 running north of me. Why, when we as Native people seem left out of the process so often, why are you encouraging Native Americans to get out and vote, and why would I want to?
There's a big difference between myself and Governor Walker. And I would say that Native people have a lot at stake in this race. I have worked with Native American people that I represent in the Ho-Chunk Nation, 1,000 members I represent in the state legislature. I serve on the State Tribal Relations Committee. In fact, I'm just about ready to be named the vice chair of that committee. I've spent a great deal of time understanding the issues, working with the tribe. I myself am sort of an honorary member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. I belong to the Ladies Auxiliary at the American Legion, the Andrew Blackhawk chapter of the American Legion, which is part of the Ho-Chunk Nation. And I've worked there with a number of different issues, including the veterans, which is a very, very important part of our communities. And we created something called the Talking Circle for the veterans to help the veterans. And it's a very important part of the healing that has to happen. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a former dairy farmer, former college professor. Now I farm with my husband on an organic farm. So I come from a different background. But when I think about the governor, I think that a lot of people haven't heard about what the governor has done to hurt the programs that are so important for our tribal members. I think about the native languages, and I know a little bit of Ho-Chunk, so Pinagigi.
Okay, thank you.
And I think how important it is that we preserve the tribal languages. We have maybe 200 fluent Ho-Chunk speakers in the entire world.
Right.
Preserving those languages is so important. And people don't know that Governor Walker, in his budget, cut about a fifth, 20%, of a small but very vital program to preserve those native languages. There were, you know about the Indian gaming money and the money that goes from the tribes to the state. And all along, it's been very important that that money be used back to the communities, back to the tribal communities to help the tribal members in so many different areas. But the governor made some very bad cuts, and he would have done even worse had the legislature not acted. For example, one of the things in his budget that he would have completely eliminated was an economic development program for American Indians all over the state to help get the money to start a new business, to help write a business plan, to help do marketing. The governor proposed the complete elimination of that plan. Now, the legislature said, no, we're not going to go there, and the money actually got put back. But there were a number of other things that the governor cut. He cut funds to mental health services, to Indian health, tribal health services. Right. And he made changes in something that I think is most fundamental for all people, but is especially important for tribal people because so many tribal members are veterans and have veterans in their families. It's a very, very important part of our culture. And one of the things the governor did was he cut 3 vital programs for veterans. One had to do with the Veterans Assistance Program. It was if a veteran is homeless, if a veteran is incarcerated, if the veteran needs help with mental health problems, if the veteran needs help at staying at one of our veterans' homes, like King, right. He cut that program. He cut the program for needy veterans that helped with health care costs or subsistence living. And then he cut a personal loan program. He actually cut 85% of the personal loan program. This might be a program that would help, say, a veteran that was homeless be able to put a down payment on an apartment, and he didn't have the money for that security deposit. And I think about what we've heard. You know, if people are reading listening to the TV ads or reading what the governor does, and I don't know about in your area, but in my area, the governor's got a great way of getting on the front page of the paper by reading Dr. Seuss to 3rd graders. Right. And it's a lot of fluff. It's not real. It's not showing what's really happening in the state government.
And frankly, some of the budget cuts you're talking about, we've heard very little about. It's been overshadowed by, first of all, the union busting bill portion, which people understood there was a lot going on there. And then almost for northern Wisconsin, for the native communities, this fast-track mining bill thing with literally hundreds of small pieces of legislation affecting education, women's rights, and all these other things, veterans' rights that you're talking about that are important to our communities in a lot of small little ways.
Yes, and like I said, they're small, but when you think of the importance of preserving the tribal languages, for example, they're very important programs, and it's not a lot of money. When I look at the money that comes in from Native American gaming, we're looking at over $50 million. And when we look at the cuts that were made, over half.
$50 million annually.
Yes. And of that, the cuts that were made, when I look at that, about half of the money that comes in actually goes for various forms of government operations. It doesn't even go back to the tribes. And the governor made even more of that, what I would call general operations. For example, he cut the Department of Tourism and then he backfilled it with money from Indian gaming. So when you think about the purposes of originally what the agreements were with those compacts, a lot of the money was to come back to the tribes. And instead, we're seeing him dismantling those programs for the tribes and moving that money more towards government operations. And I think that's a big mistake.
If I remember, part of the basis for those discussions was the money was not just supposed to come back to the tribes themselves, but come back to the counties, townships to help those cooperative agreements on law enforcement, education, school buildings and things like that, where everyone's utilizing these funds because the tribes are saying, why don't we just keep it and give it to the local school district? Why don't we help fund these things? The state said, no, we will guarantee that some of it will come back.
But to go for general tourism, that's a little bit different than to go for the local communities.
Absolutely.
That's backfilling something that should come from a different part of the state budget.
Absolutely. I'm getting this sense of a feeling like this with Walker having antagonized. We seem to have a state that's very harshly split in between. perhaps it's time to find someone that can bridge that. It has a different feel. And is it time for a woman to be elected governor of this state of Wisconsin?
Yes, yes, we have a woman leader of many of the tribes, and and I think it's about time we have a woman leader for the tribe of the state of Wisconsin. I
It
think
might
that would be a very wise idea.
kind of leave that warrior sense aside just a little bit and see if we can't get into that healing as much of it is. I mean, you need to know fiscal policy, you need to know legislative council meetings. Not everyone's going to agree with you on everything, but how do we bring this all together as we move forward?
Well, I would say one of the first things that I would do as governor is change those signs coming into the state. The big tourism signs, the governor said that we're open for business. I think I would like to change them so it read we are open for everyone. And it's a symbolic change, but it's important symbolism because I believe that solving the state's problems means all of us have to move forward together. We have to heal the differences among us. We have to respect each other while we debate our differences, and we have to stop pitting different groups against each other, whether it's the public and the private against each other, management and labor against each other, rural and urban people against each other, Native people and white people against each other. We have to bring everybody together. We're only going to move the state forward when we move together. And I think about the wisdom of the people in this state. And I think about the very difficult problems that we faced. And I believe that the wisdom for solving those problems exists among the people. But we have to lift up their voices. No one single person has all the answers of solving all the problems. But we have to lift up the voices of all the people, including the workers, because many of the workers have ideas on how to fix state government. And in Governor Walker's world, those poor workers have been muzzled. They've been told that they can't even come to hearings and testify, let alone be at the table to figure out how to solve the problems in the workplace.
Right. So we got to get out and knock on doors, talk to our neighbors, make sure our family and friends are ready to go vote, whoever and whatever it might be.
It's very important that people remember that the election is coming up fast. It's going to be May 8th and June 5th. It's coming soon. So I think the first step is to tell your neighbors and friends that there's going to be an election and we're going to have to decide who to vote for. And it's very important that the voters get a chance to understand who's running and who cares about the Native American issues and who will be in there fighting day to day, who understands what the problems are. And when you know who you're going to vote for, then tell your friends and tell your neighbors. And if you do the email, get on the email and send out the email to people. Tell them, get on the website. I have a website called KathleenVinehout.org. And that's a chance for you to go in and read a little bit about who I am and share with your friends and neighbors and send them the link. And a great deal can be done on Facebook. Go to Facebook and like my Facebook page.
We'll work that out a little bit. Our time's up for today, and I'd be very happy to say, Governor, can we have a comment from you the next time I see you?
You bet.
Good luck, and thanks for joining with us again.
Thank you very much, and best wishes to everyone.
And watch for our IndianCountryTV.com live stream from the Lakudere Ojibwe Reservation live on Wednesday, April 18th, entitled Impact of the Mining Proposal on Great Lakes Ojibwe Treaty Rights and Harvesting, being held at the James Pipe Mustache Auditorium at the LCO Community College. We go live right around 10 o'clock in the morning and go until everything's over, about 2:30 in the afternoon. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. P. Nagigi for joining with us.